All right, good morning everyone. I think we're about ready to kick this session off. Thanks very much for coming for a fairly early morning session anyway. Just a couple of introductions. My name's John Hasthorpe. I am the product engineer for the Survey123 team. I work out the Melbourne office in Australia. And I've got James, my colleague, James Tedrick, who is the product manager. Yeah. So Survey123 is a pretty aggressive release cycle. We're trying to get new functionality into your hands as quickly as possible. So the purpose of this session is to take you through some of the most significant releases that have happened over 1.9 and 1.10 of the released versions of Survey123. And we'll also take you through what's coming in version 2, which is actually currently available as part of our beta program. So everything you see in the demos today, you should be able to have access to when you get back into the office in one version or another. Okay. We're also going to give you a quick overview of Survey123 for perhaps some of the people in the room that maybe are not too...
How many? Maybe ask how many people.
Yeah, that's all good. So just to get a handle in terms of the kind of experience people have in the room with Survey123. Anyone know very little about the Survey123 product? Haven't used it at all? Okay, great, we've got a few. So we will give you an overview, a quick demonstration to give you an idea of what you can actually do with the product, and then we'll go into the new functionality that's been released over, say, the last few months. Okay, so Survey123 is all about forms. It's a form-centric application. It's very simple to use, but highly configurable. So we see a lot of organizations coming to us with very complicated written forms, pages, tick boxes, etc. And the application will enable you to take those complex forms and turn them into responsive smart forms. Additionally, the application is cross-platform. It's actually built using App Studio for ArcGIS, which means you can run it on your mobile applications, iOS, Android, Windows Phone, Linux, and also Windows. Okay. So what actually makes a form smart? Well, smart forms have a range of key functionality. The first one is that you're able to define question types, for example, text, numbers, even photos, barcodes. And what this means is that we can kind of restrict what information is put into those forms, and then we can also give the user the most intuitive interface to enter that information. For example, if you have a numeric question, then we'll give you a numeric keyboard to enter it, not a whole text keyboard. Likewise, if you want to capture a barcode, the form will give you an interface to capture that barcode, so a barcode scanner. Smart forms also give you form logic and validation. With big, complicated forms, maybe there are questions that are not relevant to a particular user based on the answer from a previous question. So we can responsibly hide those questions. Additionally, we can put in calculations to auto-complete some of the answers, meaning that the user doesn't have to type in everything manually. And we can also do things in terms of validating the answers that people give them. Maybe we can restrict the ranges for numbers, or we can actually have a look at the text to make sure that it actually makes sense in terms of the answer that we're expecting. And finally, smart forms enable us to configure the look and feel of the form. Where we have quite large forms with multiple questions, perhaps we want to compact groups so that they're not all visible and we can navigate them more easily. Or perhaps we want to spread all those questions over multiple pages. So again, helping the user get to the right question that they need to answer. So James is going to give you a quick demo in terms of showing what the application actually looks like.
Okay, so here at the Survey123 website, survey123.arcgis.com, Survey123 consists of multiple components, a website, a desktop application, as well as the field application. We'll get into those in a little bit. For now, I'm going to concentrate on the website because that's the way we can most easily begin to create a form. So I'm going to go into my surveys, and you can see that I've got a list of all of the surveys that I've authored here. I'm going to begin by creating a new survey with the web form. And just like any ArcGIS Online item, we have to provide both the title and tags for ease of search. We're now creating the form. The form item consists of a couple of components. One is the form itself, which questions are of what type, and then also we're creating a data table to store the answers for the form. This becomes a feature layer just like your other feature layers within your ArcGIS Online organization or your portal. There we go. So here, we now are in the form designer part, and I'm just going to begin creating a quick form that's more or less a nice little quick review of who you are, why you've attended Dev Summit. This is a very common form that people always have to fill out when they're attending events. So begin with a text question of your name. And then I'm going to ask which events, because as we know, we've got the Dev Summit, we've got the Dodgeball Tournament, we've got other components here that you may have been wanting to attend. So this is a multiple choice question. One of the best big values of a smart form is being able to constrain the events or constrain the choices that your people have to fill out. So, for me, I first learned this trying to process data back from the Haiti earthquake when we had what agency was helping you, and you had Red Cross, American Red Cross, French Red Cross, Croix Rouge Français, Croix Rouge, right? Within that description, there were probably 2 organizations, but we just provided 5 terms to identify them. So being able to consolidate that identification, it really helps processing. Another aspect of making a smart form, is being able to have questions that appear or disappear depending on the answers of previous questions. So I've put in, obviously, you can attend the dodgeball tournament, and then I'd want to ask, need to actually switch that out a little bit. So add another question. And that includes things such as adding in, if we are in a situation where we do need to have another choice, being able to provide that. And then, as it happens, I stayed at the Hyatt. It's about a half mile from here, and at 6:30 at night after the sessions have closed, it's a bit of a long walk, so just going to make a little jokey comment about how they enjoy the walk. And I'll just make that dependent upon this answer being either the Hyatt, which is, as I said, a little bit far away, or something else, because obviously the Hilton's right next door, as is the Marriott. In fact, we're in the Marriott right now, aren't we? So now I've created this form. I can preview it. And you can see that that last question isn't visible currently. It's waiting for me to provide an answer that makes sense for it. I'll now publish this form. And publishing is basically making sure that the changes, or basically saving the changes that we have so that we're able to fill it out. Now I've created the form. The next step is to provide it to the people who need to fill it out. That's where we go to the Collaborate tab. So you can see here for the collaboration, we can select who can submit answers to it, have access to the editing part of it. In this case, I'll just make it available to my organization. And we also have access to, we can also provide access to view this. So if I want to have a certain set of stakeholders be able to read this form, I can limit it to that. Switching over to my mobile device, now that it's been published and I can say I've shared who works with it, I'll go into my mobile device, go to Download Surveys. Then you can see there's my new survey right there at the top of the list. I've got it downloaded, and I'll open it up. So again, the form that we just offered looks exactly the same here on the mobile client. And I'm actually not going to be able to do dodgeball today, so I'll skip that. And as I said, I'm staying at the Hyatt. So I filled this out. Survey123 can work offline. If we're offline, we're obviously always going to be sending later. For now, I'm connected, so I can send now. It's connecting, putting in the data. And now if we go back, I can go to the data tab and see the response. Now, you notice that I didn't put in a point question inside my survey. There was no map. However, we are automatically capturing the point of the device. In this case, because I really hadn't given enough time to get a precise location, it put me maybe a couple hundred feet off. But you know, if you're out in the field working, that can be reduced down. We also have the ability to look at all the responses of the surveys together through the Analyze tab. This provides us a series of visualizations for the responses. So you can see, as you go through, the cumulative total of how many people are attending what. We can also be able to map these values. Unfortunately, right now there's just the one choice because we just filled that out. And then, because this is, as I said, working in a feature service, this actually works with ArcGIS Online as well. So this data can easily be brought into the map viewer and then shared out as a web application, such as a story map or an operations dashboard. So that's a really quick tour of being at Survey123.
Okay, so Survey123 is actually free components or free applications. As you've just seen, James has demoed the website component of Survey123, which enables you to author fairly simple surveys. We're adding more functionality to it all the time. You can also have that web form or that web form version of the survey so you can complete it online. You saw how you could manage access to the survey, who can actually complete it, and also who can view the analysis, all the analysis tools about the survey as well. There's also a desktop component. This application component is called Survey123 Connect. It enables you to build more advanced and sophisticated surveys using the configuration of Excel spreadsheets. So you can jump in there, you've got fine-grained control over the behaviors, the questions, calculations, and it's really, really powerful in terms of the degree of configuration that you can actually apply to your surveys. And then the final component is basically called Survey123. Unofficially, it's the Survey123 field app. You take the application out in the field on your mobile device, whether it's a tablet, laptop, mobile phone, and this is the application the end users will be using to complete the surveys. In terms of a workflow, as I mentioned, within Connect, you would build your survey using the Excel spreadsheet, type in your questions, the question types, aliases. If you've got pick lists you want to have available, you'd put all those appropriate answers in there. You can then preview your survey within the Connect application, even being able to test the behaviors to make sure everything's working as expected. Once you're happy with the survey, you can then publish it up to ArcGIS Online or to Portal for ArcGIS. This will actually create a form item on ArcGIS Online, which will ultimately be downloaded to your users out into the field. And it will also create that feature service within ArcGIS Online or Portal for ArcGIS, which will be used to capture all of those completed surveys. So all the survey information will be written to that centralized service, that one place, and then ultimately anyone who's got access to the Survey123 website with the right permissions will be able to see the progress of the survey. How many surveys have been submitted, what the answers were. So you've got that nice vision of how things are going out in the actual field. So I'm going to pass you back over to James.
Okay.
For the next demo. You are?
Yeah, I'm ready. Sorry. So this is Survey123 Connect. As As Jonathan said, it's the desktop application that lets us author more advanced surveys. I'm just going to reload here. And you can see that the survey that I just authored appears here. So I can now take this survey and extend it. So download it. And we've got that. And actually, as opposed to that, I'm going to make a copy of it. So I'm just going to create a new survey from that. So here we go. So here's the form as we provided. It still has that smart logic. To extend it, we need to use Microsoft Excel. Survey123 Connect uses a standard called XLS form. This is a standard that many other applications use, so we can easily import other forms as well. You can see here, and we expand that text so that it's visible, that we're essentially putting in the list of questions that we need. So we've got the type of questions, the name of the field that gets stored, and then the label, what the user sees. So I'm going to add one more question that is going to be a number type. So, whoops, not decimal, but integer. And many dev summits have you attended? And so, again, that's basically all we need to do to create a question. I'll just save this. It'll reload. And you can see that that's now brought in. Given that question, we can also begin to do a couple of additional things. The first is, if it's a first-time attendee, I'm going to put a note that says, so this is a note, this is a read-only piece of text that will appear. We want that to appear if the Dev Summit count is 1. So if we go here to the relevant field, relevant is where we actually calculate out whether to show or hide a particular field. So to do that, we're going to say that the number times field is going to be equal to 1, right? That's a basic comparison. I'm also going to be able to calculate another question if it's, so the first Dev Summit was in 2006. That makes this year, the 2017, the 11th. And why did my wireless just change out? So I'm going to actually calculate out the percentage. And I'm going to calculate, and so as part of that, I'm going to do the calculation to be a piece of text. Plus, again, that number times field. In this case, divided by 11, right? Number times over 11. Just going to encapsulate this into a string. So that actually goes correctly. And I think I got the syntax correct. We'll see. Yeah, so you can see here we have the percent. If I do 1, and I'd probably need to multiply by hundreds, but you can get that. We're able to do things on the fly as we go through. We're able to calculate. We're able to show or hide questions. To republish the survey, I just publish this back up. And again, we're creating the form and the tables. And now this form is ready for me to download back into my mobile device and then fill out this more enhanced survey. So Survey123, as Jonathan mentioned, has a fairly aggressive release cycle. We came out of beta at last year's users conference in July. And since then, we have had an update just about every other month. We took a break off for Christmas and holidays, but we had a release in February. We are very responsive to community needs. We have a forum on GeoNet. It's extremely active in terms of asking questions and providing answers, and also providing us enhancements. If you see something or that Survey123 isn't doing and that you think it should be doing, let us know. It's still not, I would say it's not a mature application yet. There's still a lot of things that we want to bring into it, and your feedback helps us determine which ones we should be working on first. Our last release, which was an update of the website component, was in February. Before that, the last release of the mobile application was in December, with a small patch in January. Currently, as Jonathan said, we have a beta for our 2.0 version for the field application, currently ongoing at the Esri early adopter site, and we're expecting an April release for that. Oh, sorry, I should grab the remote. So now what we're going to do is a little bit of demonstrating what we've introduced over the past few releases with Survey123.
Okay, so the first bit of functionality that we're going to look at is something that we introduced in 1.10 of Survey123, and that's the ability to effectively build surveys off of your existing feature services. So you've seen the workflow where you'd go in and manually create your questions, your question types, aliases, question answers, etc. What you can do is actually get Survey123 to do pretty much most of that work for you. So let's work through a little example. I've got a web map here containing a feature service. This feature service is coming from ArcGIS Online. It could be coming from Portal for ArcGIS. I'll run through the specific requirements in just a second, but just to give you an overview of the data, we have site locations for water quality sampling, I should say. And these water quality sites, they're not going to be updated very periodically, but we have a related table which contains the water quality samples. So each site could have one or more water quality samples, and realistically throughout time we're going to carry on updating that and collecting more and more water quality samples. So this is the data set. If I then jump into Survey123 Connect, sign into the application using your named user account, and then you can jump into the standard option to create a new survey. So the invented with a name here. So you can create surveys from template samples, the community examples, but down here at version 1.10, you've got the option to create a survey from an existing feature service. I should also point out here that I'm actually using the beta version, which has got the nice bit of functionality that enables you to sort services and surveys by date or by name, and you can also use text to refine your search as well. Very, very handy for doing demos. Okay, so this is the service that we were looking at. We'll click Create Survey. And what Survey123 is going to do, it's going to look at all of the fields in the feature service. It's going to say, okay, well, I'm going to take the field names and turn them into question names. I am going to look at the data types within the feature service and convert those into question types as best as effectively Survey123 can. If there are aliases in place and you've set those up on your feature services, you'll see that the aliases will come through as labels. And of course, if you've set up domains in the feature service, it will pull those through as potential drop-down answers that you can then use in your questions. So it's not perfect. In most cases, you're going to have to do a little bit of refinement in terms of maybe removing fields that are not relevant, in terms of you don't want to turn those fields into questions. And you might want to add in more advanced behavior, such as making questions relevant or hidden if they're not required, adding in calculations, default values, etc. So in this example, you can see that we have a question for pretty much every field within the service, and it's also picked up the relate and turned it into what we call a repeat. So repeats enables us to actually go through and capture, in this case, multiple water quality samples against that water quality site. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a quick example of what we do to tidy things up. In this case, the survey that I want to build is all about updating the information for the water quality sample site, not capturing water quality information. So I can sit there and ultimately delete those questions. I might choose to go in and reorder things and bring the station ID number to the top. I also might want to make this slightly more prominent by adding in a little bit of HTML and making it bold. There's also a few things that I can do in terms of appearance. So in this case, we've got a number of water body types. I don't want them all displayed. I want them as a kind of hidden drop-down list. So I can change the appearance and set that to be minimal. I can do the same for the water advisory options as well, whether or not there's an advisory in place, yes, no, or not applicable. And I will also, oh sorry, that's the wrong field, minimal. And the other thing is that where I've got a text box for writing a description, I don't want it to be a single line text box. I want the user to be able to write a little bit more text in there, so we can set that to be multi-line. Click Save, and you can see that, you know, we could carry on refining this forever, but you can see that things have been tidied up. We've got a more prominent label. All the repeat questions are gone. Just one final thing that I'll do is that I'll set a default value of now. You can also put this particular calculation into the calculation field. And this would just mean we can auto-populate the current date and time, and the end user doesn't have to manually write it in. But if they want to, they can modify it to something else. Okay, so we can see that date time is automatically being populated. When we're happy with the look and feel, we can then go forth and publish the survey. You'll see that the error message, or sorry, the message that you get is basically saying that we're using a custom URL. When we publish the survey, we're just going to basically publish a form item and not create a new feature service to capture the survey information. And then we can click publish, and then that'll be available to download to the field applications. There is a slight variation on the process. What you can choose to do is effectively use a survey that you've already created. Maybe it's something you've used against a previous feature service, and you just want to take this existing survey and point it to an existing feature service. Okay, so same workflow, but this time we're going to go through and use the option to point to an existing survey XLS file. So let's browse. Okay. And I'm just going to take this water relate Excel form. Okay, so this is a viable option. The only consideration here is that you need to make sure that if you're doing this manually and you're not using Survey123 to build the survey, it's up to you to make sure that the survey questions are going to match the corresponding fields within your feature service. They need to exist, they need to be an appropriate type, otherwise you're going to get some error messages when you're going to try and publish the survey. Okay. The other thing that you need to do is tell Survey123 the URL of the feature service that you're wanting to publish the survey against. So I'm going to go back to ArcGIS Online and the item for that particular feature service. ArcGIS Online makes it pretty easy because you can go down here and grab the service URL, and then we're going to paste it back into this submission URL. Okay, let's paste it in. And this is fine. You've also got another option to say, okay, well, I'm pointing it to this service, but I actually don't want to point it to the default layer, which is going to be layer position 0. So in this case, it would have been the sample site features. I want to build a server that's actually going to target the related table. So I would need to go in and grab the name of the related table. Okay. Jump back into the settings page of the spreadsheet, and then type it into this form ID cell here. Okay, with that in place, you can see that I've done a bit of work configuring all the questions. I'll click Save, and then view the results within the Connect application. Okay, so all looks good. I'm then going to publish, and I'm going to hit an error message. I've kind of put this in here just to show you what you'll get if something doesn't quite work in terms of the question versus the appropriate field within your feature service. You do get some help to tell you what's broken here. It's telling me that for the station number question, I'm providing a string when the actual feature service is expecting an integer. So we can't publish it until we go ahead and fix it. So let's just do that. Form. Okay, so this is the station number question. Basically, this select one question where we're giving the user a drop down to select an appropriate question, that's actually returning a string. So I need to go into an appropriate field and just set the question type. So let's quick scan in. Yeah. So Esri field type will give you the option to effectively specify the data that we're going to send, or the data type that we're going to send back to the server. So we have the option here to just say we'll set it to Esri field type integer. Click Save. Okay, and we'll jump back into Connect, and we'll have another go at republishing. Okay, so we've got the same error, or the same input or message box that we had previously. We're basically saying we're going to publish a survey against an existing feature service, and that will carry on, take the form to ArcGIS Online and make it available to people out in the field. So just a little bit in terms of requirements for the survey, or sorry, the service to get it to work. We support hosted feature services, so pre-existing services that you have on ArcGIS Online or Portal for ArcGIS. There's also limited support for services coming out of your ArcGIS for server. These need to be added as items into your portal, be it ArcGIS Online or Portal for ArcGIS. And if it's secured, you'll also need to save your credentials into that item as well. Currently, we don't support federated services. It's something that we're looking to address, but at the time being, support is not there. So I'll pass you back over to James.
Can you just go back?
Yep.
5 or 4.
How are you supposed to know the global ID?
Okay, so this is a more advanced workflow, and I'm going to take you through it as part of the tips and tricks session. So it's just an example, but yeah, if you're interested in that workflow, then I will take you through that later on.
Yeah. So I'm going to provide a little bit overview of some of the new functionality that was introduced via the web components of Survey123. I talked about the first one very briefly when we did the overview tour. That's the ability to designate one group for sharing for submitting data, and another group for sharing for viewing the data. Having different people have different access rights to the same feature service. This is taking advantage of a new capability that was introduced with ArcGIS Online in their December update, the ability to create those feature service views. So if you take a look here, this is the form that I just created with the dev sum, so you can see the form item, the feature layer, and then the field worker and stakeholder views. If I click on the stakeholder view, you'll see that in the settings, editing has been disabled. So you can share that URL out. No one will be able to submit to your survey via that. That's great when we're in like a crowd, when we want to display the results of a survey publicly, for example, but not want to have the data point at risk for somebody putting in fake data, essentially. Similarly, with the for the field worker view, we provide we provide an add-only point, so people can't delete the features once they've been submitted. Another new feature that was part of the ArcGIS Online update that we incorporate is social media logins. So here, I'm going to sign in with an account that has been linked via my Facebook identity. You can also see that this account is a very new account. I haven't created any surveys. With the 1.11 February release, we did a few cosmetic things to make the on-ramping process for new users, new survey authors, a little bit easier. So the suggestion to create the new survey is right there, and we also provide guidance on which authoring component to use: the Survey123 website or Survey123 Connect. Once the survey is published, again, let me go back to my existing survey and collaborate. You want to be able to share it somehow. This is extremely important for public surveys that are shared with everyone. In order to load those on device, we actually are providing a link for that survey. So you can see here at the bottom of the collaborate, I've got a link to open that survey. Right now it's going to open it in the browser. It also has the option to open it in the Field app. So that basically when you can email this link to people, they can click the link in their email and it will automatically open Survey123 if they don't have it. If they do have it. If they don't have it, there will be a prompt for them to download the mobile application. If I click this, just open a new tab, you can see that it's now prompting me to open Survey123. And you can see right here before it opens that the option to download is there. You can see that's automatically downloading the application, or the form, and so I'm now ready to fill in. So we're trying to make it easy for you to distribute your form, whether it's to a specified group within your ArcGIS Online organization, or if it's a public survey to anyone who needs to be able to fill it in. So we've showed you what we have already done. The next thing we want to talk about is what we're currently working on. As I previously mentioned, our 2.0 version is in a public beta via the Esri Early Access site. Anyone here in the room is free to go to earlyaccess.esri.com, I believe, and subscribe into the beta. There you'll find documentation about what we're going to be showing you in depth, as well as access to the 2.0 versions of the software. The small caveat being that given the way the Apple Store works, we can't provide direct access to the 2.0 version of the iPhone application. Instead, we're using Apple's test flight service to provide you access to the beta application. It's essentially Apple's method for letting you be subscribed into a beta program. What we're looking at with the 2.0 version is to support editing workflows, being able to either revise the survey once you've submitted it, or be able to take take features that have already been entered and update information about them as you go out into the field. We're also looking to have better forms on the web. Currently, the Survey123 website supports fairly simple forms. We're trying to put in the full power that we have with the mobile application in terms of logic, in terms of calculation, into a web form so that we have a full equivalency between the two. Finally, and this is the last two are 2.0 plus, I will say. We're not going to get them out at 2.0. But finally, we're looking to provide the Survey123 website so that it can work with your portals if you have an ArcGIS Enterprise installation. Currently, the mobile application and Survey123 Connect do work against an ArcGIS Enterprise. They do connect to your portal. What we're looking to do is also bring the website, the easy form authoring, the data view, and the analysis tab, also be able to connect to your portal, either through our Survey123 online website or through an on-premise installation. We'll not talk about that one much more here, but there is a demo theater at 2:30 today where we're going to go more in depth in terms of how we plan to work with on-premise installations. So, and then looking beyond that, looking at that, we're looking at probably 2 releases. As I said, we're looking to release in April, and we believe that we'll be able to release in May and also before UC to get more functionality involved. Beyond that, it really again is brought up by the community, but Enhancements that have certainly been suggested are polygon and line support. Survey123 currently only supports point input, as well as additional things. Sketchbox, for example, is a free-form drawing field. Other enhancements to currently implemented components. Also, we've heard a severe need for being able to have some form of report generated from your survey data. We currently support basically what we call an individual response via the Survey123 website, which is a simple printout of the data items. But we're hearing people want more complex layout capabilities. Currently, we support that by downloading the survey data as a CSV file, bringing it into something like Microsoft Excel and doing a mail merge. We want to have a more friendly method for you to be able to create reports. Again, taking a look at that, these slides obviously will be included, so we've included a nice friendly link to the early adopter community. And now we want to show you some of those features after talking about them.
Okay, so the first example of beta functionality that we're going to take you through is the ability to edit existing surveys. So these might be surveys that you personally have just collected and then submitted to the server, realize that you made a mistake and want to go back and make an amendment, or it might be that you're actually pulling through existing surveys. So surveys effectively might be for the purpose of updating information on a particular asset, for example. We're going to keep revisiting that asset time and time again. So you've got the ability to now open up the previously captured information, make updates, and then resubmit it back to the server. So let's take a look. Again, we're looking at the same database, the same data set of water quality sample sites. It's viewed in a web map, and I've just set a refresh rate so we can continually see the latest view of the data and its attributes. Jumping into version 2 of the field application on the left here, just going to open up the water quality survey. Sent box is where the previously submitted surveys that I've sent go into. And I'm able now to go in and select any of my previously submitted surveys, open up using the edit and resend option. You can see all of the attributes that I have or previously entered, and then I can go in and change the status. Once I've made all the edits, amendments, and I'm happy, I can click send now. That new survey is going to the server, and you can see that the value has been updated within that feature service. So a nice straightforward workflow. The second option we have here is that perhaps we've got surveys that have already been sent by other users in the organization. Maybe you've done it months ago, years ago, whatever. So we've introduced the concept of the inbox. Now the inbox enables you to grab surveys from the server. So you can run the refresh button. This will effectively in the background run a query. By default, it will grab all of the surveys within that feature service, bring them down to your device, and then you can go through the same workflow of updating attributes. I should also point out that we now have introduced a map view of these previously completed surveys. This includes clustering behavior, so we can handle locations where we've got lots of overlapping surveys. And then we have the option to go in and view individual surveys, open up the attributes, and then we can go in and collect them and update the values accordingly. So what I'm going to do now is just take you through the workflow of enabling editing within your own surveys, just so you can get a handle of what you need to do if you want to implement this functionality on your own surveys. So I'm just going to exit this one, and I'll jump into Connect. Okay, so I'll create a new survey from scratch here, just from File, call it Editing, and okay, Water Edit. Okay, so once that loads up, we won't do anything in terms of changing the questions, so we'll go straight into the settings for the form. And you'll see at version 2, you've got this new option to select inbox. By default, editing is disabled, but by changing this drop-down, you can see that we're given a few additional options. The drop-down will actually turn on editing. It will give you access to that inbox, so that will appear in any surveys that you've enabled this for. I should say that this behavior is survey specific, so you can choose to have editing on whatever specific surveys that you want. You also have another couple of options. You can enter a where clause. So this means instead of downloading all of the surveys that have been collected, we could be quite specific. Maybe you want to download surveys from a particular user, maybe a particular date, maybe surveys with a particular status that you want to go back in review. This is the bit where you guys can be creative and think about, okay, well, how can I use this inbox for my own survey workflows? At the moment, the where clause is fairly basic, but we're definitely looking to add enhancements to this functionality as we move forward. The other option we have here is to apply a spatial filter. I showed you that map view. You'll be able to use that map view to filter the surveys within the inbox. So maybe you rock up to a new area, you set your map extent, press refresh, and then you limit your inbox to those surveys within that map extent. Okay, so what we're going to do is quickly configure a where clause for this survey. What I want to do in this situation is to only look at previously submitted surveys that have a current advisory warning in place. So I'm going to grab the field and simply paste it in. And then effectively, the results or the options we have for this are a yes, no, or not applicable. So I'm just going to type in yes in this case. And then I'm able just to publish this. Okay. So at the moment, there's not any validation on the where clause. You need to ensure that it's accurate. But again, we'll be adding more error checking into this as we move forward with future releases. Okay, so that has been published. I'll jump into the Survey123 field app, and I'll download an existing survey. Okay, again, a nice functionality in terms of being able to sort your surveys, meaning that we can sort by date and you can get access to the most recently updated survey. Okay, so that's now downloaded on the device. Okay. So now if we run the inbox, click refresh, you'll see that we've got a subset of those features. So 19 surveys have been configured with the advisory in place and set to yes. Now the inbox is not showing the most intuitive and informative information for you guys to navigate which surveys what. So if you're not familiar with it, there is a property within the Excel spreadsheet you can change to decide what's actually shown in your inbox and help you navigate those existing surveys. Okay, so back into settings. We've already played with water station, or the form ID and the submission URL, but what we haven't had a look at is the instance name. Whatever you put in this instance name box will appear as a label within the inbox to help you understand what that survey is actually about. So in this case, the thing I want to include is a bit of hard-coded text, which will be, in this case, we'll just call it site name. Name. I'll add a space in. And then I just want to add in the value of, in this case, we'll take the site number. So I'll go to the survey questions. The field that we want to display is actually the WS underscore station number. So back to settings. We just need to tell Survey123 that this is actually a field. So put in the dollar value, brackets, and then just type in the actual field name. Click save. and then back in Connect.
Open and publish.
Yeah. So I'll close that.
Sorry, what time?
Editing one, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, just reload that. Okay. Just double check that that's come through. Okay, all good. Okay, so we'll publish a survey up to ArcGIS Online, then we'll download it back onto the device so we can get those updates visible on the field application. Okay, all good. Okay. Download surveys. Refresh that. And let's go back in. Okay, so much more informative. So you can combine as many or as few fields as you want, your own free text. But just a helpful tip there to basically make navigating those existing forms a little bit more easy. I should say that once they're in the inbox, as you then make an edit to each of those surveys, they'll be removed from the inbox. So you can use them a bit like a task list, working through all the surveys, making the updates, and eventually you'll get to the point where all the surveys will be removed from the inbox until you click refresh again and you pull them all back down based on whatever your query was. Just a little bit of info in terms of where we are in terms of editing capabilities. At the moment, we don't support repeats. So at the moment, you won't be able to publish a survey that has repeats in it and then enable editing, it will fail. The other thing is that we don't support attachments as well. It will enable you to publish it, and it will give you the attachment button, but it just won't work. So those things are definitely on the cards, but we wanted to get the editing functionality into your hands as quickly as possible, and repeats and attachments will come later on.
So a couple other features that we're working on for the 2.0 release are improvements in terms of the navigation experience within the application. So the first is that when you create a group, and you've been seeing it a little bit off and on with us, that the groups are now minimizable and expandable, and that we can actually set these to be minimized by default by using the minimal appearance. The second, which won't quite make 2.0, but it'll be there sort of as a hidden feature until we finish out the user interface on it, is pagination. So longer forms, you can break them into pages, and that will let you actually be able to sort of just show a few questions at a time. This is, as you can imagine, actually a pretty long form. And as you can see on the top, there's something on the order of about 20 sections. This is, again, why we're not quite ready to have it released in documentation, but it's there, but it will be there as there, and it's documented in our beta site in terms of creating it. So you can see that we've got a page of information, and then we can go through and scroll to the next page, and the next, and the next, or go to a page in the middle, or return to the beginning, if my touch target works well. As I said, we're still working on that. Finally, as I mentioned, we're working on enhanced web forms. So this was actually something that we released with Survey123 Connect in 1.10, that you can actually now select this open in the Survey123 web app, and that'll take you to the in development web form. The idea of this web form is that it supports much simpler, or it supports the more complex capabilities. Apparently my sign-in's timed out. As well as enhanced layout capabilities. So being able to, using the standard text widgets and default calculations, the Likert scale, so a horizontal, linear evaluation, incorporate images inside of your questions. These are all aspects that are currently supported with Survey123. It also is helping us support aspects that we don't currently yet. So having a horizontal set of questions, or horizontal answers that have a combined answer for a set of questions. So these questions all have the same answers. They also support things like calculations. So this is a calculation, this is a survey that records fish. Basically, you block off a part of a stream and do a census of the fish that are there. Part of that is seeing how, to what degree are they healthy or not. So you can calculate the health of a fish by comparing the current weight of the fish over an ideal weight, which is based on a given size. So if you can take a look, these are part of that. There's a formula here. We've pulled in, based on the selection of the type of fish, we've pulled in the values for that formula. And once we input the actual length of the fish, you can see that we can then, and then also the comparison weight, you can see that we're actually creating a ratio where 1 essentially is a healthy fish. So we're able to now do those calculations, that we mentioned a bit earlier in the web. It also will have support for pages, so that's the same. This is the same page form that we had before. You can see as we go through a page and it's not and it has a required element, we actually are prompted to fill it in and then continue through. So again, we're trying to basically make it so that on the web or on the mobile device, your users can fill in the same forms no matter how sophisticated they are.
Does that form have to be authored in the web to be able to edit it on the web?
So the question is, does this form have to be authored on the web for it to be edited? And by edited, do you mean filled in? So the answer to that is no. If you go to the Survey123 website, the current web form does require you to author on the web. This web form that you see here can be accessed either through forms authored on the web or Survey123 Connect. That's what we mean by a sort of equivalency with that. And that's why.
Yeah, full.
So that was what we're currently working on with Survey123. Survey123 is also sort of unique in our field apps in that it's extendable. The Survey123 is built on top of App Studio. And if you have App Studio desktop, you have the ability to create your own version of Survey123. We see customers doing this very often to white label Survey123. As opposed to making it Survey123 for ArcGIS, make it my collection app for my company. Be able to restrict to access to just their portals, not have the option to log into ArcGIS Online. Additionally, you can. It also works well in terms of if you have a mobile device management solution, or also known as an enterprise app store. Typically, you would have to come to us. We would give you the application for you to re-sign into that store. With App Studio, you can create your version of Survey123 and publish it with your enterprise app store's credentials straight from App Studio. You don't need to come to us in order to be able to work with your MDM solution. Additionally, if you really want to get into it, and there are features that we do not yet have in Survey123, the mobile application, you can actually write those in. We have a session at 1 o'clock today in this room about extending Survey123. Finally, we want to wrap up by reminding you that we have full documentation for the website, access via the web or the Connect application. We also, as I said, have a very active GeoNet group. So please, if you have questions about Survey123, we encourage you to ask them here, because if you have a question, somebody else probably has a question. And so we want to make sure that they're both, that when it's answered in a way that everyone can get access to it. And we also post a blog there with what's new, as well as how to use some of these new features that we're talking about. And then finally, to get you started, we have a YouTube playlist on the ArcGIS channel that covers some of the beginning aspects of Survey123, as well as going in a little bit more depth in some of the functionality. I realize that we are really coming up to the end of time. However, Jonathan and I are still here for the next session, so we're here for the next half hour, and we'd be very happy to take your questions. Thank you.